I'm very excited to be here, and I apologize. I do not know Vietnamese, so I will be presenting in English. I want to thank the interpreter in the back for helping to translate this so that everyone can get the takeaways from my presentation. But first of all, I want to echo the earlier presenters and just say a massive thank you to the organizers, to the sponsors, to all of you for attending on a Saturday. It's really exciting to see the community here in Vietnam so active, coming together to talk about open source and cloud native strategies. So today, what I want to talk about is we're really in an unprecedented time where OpenStack is seeing some renewed demand. You know, the project is 14 years old, so that's a long time. But we're seeing, even just as this year, 3 different trends that are really driving an increased momentum all around the world, even here in Vietnam. So before I get started, I wanted to actually provide some information around what the OpenInfra Foundation is. So I am the VP of Marketing and Community, and so the Open Infrastructure Foundation, we are the home of open source infrastructure software. So most of you have probably heard of OpenStack. That is our most recognizable brand, and like I said, 14 years old as of this year. But we also have other projects that fit within the infrastructure layer of the data center that are also open source projects powered by communities around the world. This includes Kata Containers, Starling X, and Zool. So I'm going to focus on OpenStack today, but if you have any questions about these other projects and where they fit into your stack, please find me. We can't do this alone. We work with a lot of different partners throughout the world. These are our gold and platinum members, and then we also have lots of silver and associate members, including FPT and Viettel up here, who are representing the Vietnam ecosystem with the OpenInfra Foundation collaboration. So we're really excited to work very closely with them on continuing the success of OpenStack, but also the success of open infrastructure software. And what have we done? What have all of these organizations come together to do? Well, again, we're going to talk about OpenStack. So together, we have built one of the most active open source projects to ever exist, with Linux, Kubernetes, and Google Chromium. Those are the most active open source projects in the world, and OpenStack is one of those 4. The numbers don't lie. There's over 600,000 changes from over 10,000 contributors from hundreds of organizations over the past 14 years, and that momentum is continuing to go. We just had our 29th release, Caracal, in March, I believe, and our 30th Dalmatian is scheduled for this October. So the releases still come every 6 months, and we're still seeing more and more adoption every day. So what is driving this adoption? You know, it's been 14 years. The IT landscape has changed dramatically, and we've seen a little bit of that in the presentations this morning. But I want to talk about 3 different trends that we're seeing that organizations throughout the world, including here in Vietnam, are telling us that they're getting new customers, they're getting new demand, asking for OpenStack, and they're asking for it now. The first one is around digital sovereignty. So this is all about where your data is, who has access to that data, and what are those laws that apply to it. And so this has really started a revolution for cloud providers, and it started really in Europe, and we're seeing it in Asia now as well, where more regional or local providers are able to adapt to these circumstances with open source software in a way that hyperscalers, they can't really do. So it's giving them an edge up on Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and all of these other big hyperscalers throughout the world by providing regional strategies for organizations who are trying to accommodate the different digital sovereignty laws. One of the other ones, and this one I personally have had many, many talks with organizations, including FPT and Viettel actually, about is licensing changes. And one of the most notable, I would say, in the past year is when Broadcom acquired VMware, and they changed a lot of their licensing. They changed their partner program. They changed a lot of the different fundamental aspects of how VMware collaborates with the global IT infrastructure community. A lot of people weren't happy because that drove up costs for some up to 100%. And they were like looking at their budgets and they were concerned. And so they've turned to OpenStack to see if that is a viable virtualization alternative. And it is. There's not 100% feature parity, but there is a significant overlap in features so that partners throughout the OpenStack global ecosystem can help transfer VMware workloads to OpenStack. And it's already happening. Over 60% of organizations that you saw on those slides earlier with the logos, over 60% of them have already done it. They have already migrated workloads from VMware to OpenStack, and I actually only expect this percentage to continue to increase. The next one is one that's been talked about a lot this morning, is AI. And of course, everyone knew I would be talking about AI because that is what everyone's talking about these days. And it's really talking about, what is the compute infrastructure, the storage infrastructure, the networking infrastructure that's going to be required to power AI workloads. I thought the FPT presentation earlier was really interesting because it echoed a lot of the things that we're seeing that I'm going to talk about here in a minute about how compute and storage are dynamically changing. It's completely different, and the software has to evolve to do that. Speaking of FPT, one of the things I'm really excited about, so we have an event, I think in like 10 days, in Suwon, South Korea, called the OpenInfra Summit, which is the first regional summit we've ever done, but it's the OpenInfra Summit Asia, and they're talking about the AI factory infrastructure that he was talking about earlier this morning, and the role that OpenStack plays in that. So these conversations, they're happening, we're seeing progress, we're seeing momentum, and I want to talk a little bit about why. So Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, has talked about how the current data center market is $1 trillion USD, which converted to dong is, well, it's a lot. I can't do that. But it's expected to double to 2 trillion. And all of these are around accelerated compute, primarily. And what is accelerated compute? Why is this something that is fundamentally changing the data center market landscape to a point that it's going to double the entire market value to $2 trillion? Well, the reason is because AI has a lot of storage, or it requires a lot of storage, it requires a lot of compute, and it requires things to move faster, move more real time with zero downtime. And so needing to store 180 zettabytes is also a significant increase in storage capabilities that data centers are going to have to be able to accommodate to power AI workloads. And everyone wants to power AI workloads. So what do these demands require? We've talked about accelerated compute, we've talked about 180 zettabytes of storage required. Well, what do these demands and any other new IT infrastructure demands require? Well, first, it requires new hardware. Every day there's a new chip, new data center structure, new servers, because we're having to really evolve what hardware looks like and how hardware performs to be able to manage and support AI workloads. But hardware can't do it by itself. And I think that's what we're all here to talk about today, is there's also new software to manage the hardware. The software has to evolve. And this is why over the last 14 years, OpenStack has always had a release every 6 months because it evolves. There's 10,000 contributors who are making sure that OpenStack is ready to manage new infrastructure needs, and AI is no different. Because open source for infrastructure, that's what we do. That is what the foundation does, and that is what all of the contributors in our community, all of those organizations, that's what they build. So we know how to focus on that software layer for the new hardware that's being developed to target new use cases. I want to actually provide an example of how we've actually done this before. So 10 years ago, this was actually my first OpenStack Summit. It was in Atlanta in the United States. AT&T, one of the world's largest telecoms, came and did a keynote, and they talked about network functions virtualization. So really transforming the data center network for telecom workloads. And this was pioneer at that time. No one had really talked about it. And Toby asked the crowd, he's like, what does OpenStack need to be able to do this? Like, OpenStack was already 4 years old. but it wasn't ready. It wasn't ready to tackle NFV. NFV was another $1 trillion market that global telecoms all around the world in every country were trying to figure out. Well, lucky for Toby, the OpenInfra Foundation, we have a formula for that. We have a formula to figure out how do we mobilize our community, how do we make progress to tackle these challenges and to make the most out of these market opportunities. So first, we gather a coalition of key stakeholders. That's any user who is trying to figure out how to deploy something like AI or NFV in this case. We gather the developers who are actually building the software, and we get them in the same room. We get them talking to each other. Often there's interpreters because we have a very global community, and we talk about what the gaps are in current open source infrastructure software. So back then, there was a massive list, especially within some of the networking projects within OpenStack of what can't it do that it needs to do. And let's define them, and then let's coordinate that upstream work. Let's make it happen. Let's get the work needed, and it's going to take time. It's not something that happens overnight. And in fact, it took 10 years. So today, as I stand on the stage, 9 out of the 10 world's largest telcos power their networks with OpenStack. And that's because of the work the community did to identify gaps, to coordinate upstream work, and to work together. Because that's the most important thing. That's why we have events like this, to talk, to learn from each other, and to advance open source software. Now, it's not just one type of person, like I mentioned before. Every single person in this room fits into here somewhere, and you all have a role. Whether you're a user who consumes open source infrastructure, you are an ecosystem who employs developers, who commercializes the projects, who builds products that serve the market. Or you're a developer building the software and taking that feedback to ensure that we are making the most out of this market opportunity. So I want to go back to AI. So NFV shows that we can do it, but where are we with AI? And so luckily, a very similar use case to AI is called HPC, which is high performance computing. It's been very adopted by different universities as well as supercomputers around the world. Now, OpenStack has already we've seen massive adoption among OpenStack users, universities in over 100 countries that are using OpenStack for HPC. So that's laying the groundwork for this accelerated compute that's needed for AI. But let's remember, there's gaps. HPC doesn't have the exact same requirements as AI, so that's why we need to get together, talk about what needs to happen in OpenStack and what it needs in order to support AI workloads. But we're already seeing some progress. So in the UK, one of actually the fastest supercomputer in the UK runs OpenStack. And they're using it to support large language models, or LLMs, and they're working with us directly to talk about, why OpenStack? What does OpenStack need? How can we continue to leverage this for our supercomputer? We also have seen NextGen, one of the world's top buyers of GPUs. They've said that OpenStack is the backbone of their data center, which is incredible. So someone who's actually, their company's purpose is to innovate for AI, they're relying on OpenStack, so why not everyone else? And like I said, there are gaps. Do not get me wrong. OpenStack is not ready right now. But AI, we're just at the very beginning. It's not going to be just 10 years. It's probably going to be the next 20 years that we see progress in software to accommodate AI workloads. But what's great is, like I said, Caracal was just released in April of this year, so 4 or 5 months ago. This was a feature that was identified as a critical missing component within OpenStack to support AI workloads. It's vGPU live migration. They delivered it in Caracal. So every 6 months, new features are getting added. Conversations are happening. We're figuring out how to make OpenStack the leading open source infrastructure project to support AI workloads, and you all play a role in that. So to summarize, like I said, there are 3 trends that are driving this OpenStack adoption: digital sovereignty, VMware licensing changes, and the one that I'm personally the most excited about, because I think that the limit does not exist right now is AI requirements. So this is where I think there's a lot of collaboration opportunity. This is where I see us really being able to make a difference in this world and change how IT infrastructure is built to power AI workloads. We can't do this alone. So in addition to everyone here in this room, there are 110,000 community members all around the world. All of these users, all of these developers, all of these companies and ecosystem members, everyone here and there plays a role into making this happen, and we have to do it together. We have to collaborate. We have to collaborate without boundaries and make the most of OpenStack and other open source infrastructure software. So please join us. I think there's actually a picture from Vietnam in here somewhere, maybe. But I want to thank you all. Like I said, we can't do this alone, and I'm just very honored to be here in Vietnam with all of you. Please stop me today if you want to talk about OpenStack, OpenInfra, or any of our other projects. I'm just very excited to be here, so look forward to meeting more of you today. Thank you.